Welcome to another meeting of the Lorain County Commissioners, broadcast exclusively on your Lorain County Community College education station. The Lorain County Commissioners cordially invite you to see the meetings live and in person every Thursday morning. The meetings are located in the Lorain County Administration Building, located at 226 Middle Avenue in downtown Elyria. The meetings start at 9:30 a.m. on most weeks. Now, enjoy the meeting.
Good morning, everybody. If we could all please stand for the presentation of the flags by the Lorain County Deputy Sheriff's Honor Guard. Forward. Please remain standing. The Elyria High School Madrigals, directed by Dr. Mark Jesse, will now sing the national anthem. We will now do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to invite Robin Jones and Tom Kelly to this podium. We'll be doing a brief presentation of a memorial plaque for this facility.
On this day, the one-year anniversary of the horrific terrorist attacks upon America, we dedicate this plaque in remembrance of all victims who have suffered because of terrorism, war, crime, and other disasters. And it's got all the commissioners' names on it. Thank you. Thank you.
If we could please have 15 seconds, a moment of silence. Today we find ourselves gathered on the one-year anniversary of September 11, 2001. The day our nation, indeed our way of life, was attacked. More than 3,000 civilian men, women, and children died that day, but tens of thousands more lived, thanks to the extraordinary acts of firefighters, police officers, and emergency medical personnel. Many of these heroes also lost their lives. As we all now know, United Flight 93 was heading towards the U.S. Capitol. After hearing of the other 3 jets, the Americans on board knew of their fate. When faced with the choice of doing nothing and doing something, the world knew what America stood for when the final words heard were, "Let's roll." We have been at war overseas against these cowards for some time now. Our soldiers have fought and died for our way of life here in the States. And one does not have to look far, for even here in Elyria, one of Lorain County's own, Andrew Nemeth, was injured when the USS Cole was attacked by terrorists. Our society is based on ingenuity, hard work, education, cooperation, initiative, and freedom. And as we remember those who have died at the hands of terrorism and war, let us celebrate those virtues. Let's build upon our heroes' inspiration, and let's all say thank you to those who live by the words and its meaning, "Let's roll." Commissioner Bassey.
I want to thank each and every one of you for being here today. It's an honor to have you. Can I ask the people that are in the back, if you want to come in, please come in along the wall here. There's plenty of room. There's no sense standing outside. Anyway, you have to excuse me. Hearing the 21-gun salute reminded me of when my husband passed away, which was almost a year ago. And we had that at the funeral. Anyway, you know, who would have thought a year ago that we would be here today cutting a ribbon for a building that is going to be used for our emergency services? It's just amazing. And I brought some tea light candles. I hope there was enough for each of you. And I hope that when you light them, that you'll remember those that have lost their lives due to the terrorist act. And please also remember their families and America. Americans work hard protecting and safeguarding the American way of life and our democracy. This week honors the courageous spirit of American people and pays tribute to those whose lives were lost September the 11th, 1 year ago today. The last year has been a hard year for America. When you stop and think of all that has happened in this last year, and our hearts cry for fairness, trust, and peace. This nation was founded on God, and we must put our faith and trust back in Him. Again, I thank you for being here, and it's an honor. And there's so many people that we have to thank for all this that you're going to see here today. People that we probably have even forgotten that had their hand in putting this together. And Mr. Jacoby and his wife and what they have done to start the 911. And like I said, there's been a lot of hard work and a lot of energy. All the volunteers that their names will probably never be remembered, but in our hearts we'll never forget them. And all I can say is thank each and every one of you.
The people of Lorain County join with their brothers and sisters across the nation in remembering the victims of September 11th, 2001. Our hearts and prayers continue to go out to all who have been touched by this tragedy. On the first anniversary of this devastation, we should continue to pay special attention to the stories of heroism that we have heard. In the face of danger and disaster, these heroes have shown the true spirit of the American people by responding with bravery, courage, and selflessness. We do, in fact, honor the dead by the ways in which we live our lives. Edward Everett Hale has said, "Look up and not down. Look forward and not back. Look out and not in. Lend a hand. Many, many hands have been lent in the rebuilding of the affected areas and in the hearts and minds of our American spirit, which is one of patriotism and caring for our fellow man. The wreckers came to America on September 11th, 2001. We must continue to be the builders. I would like to read to you a poem entitled Wrecker or Builder, whose author is unknown. I watched them tearing a building down, a gang of men in a busy town. With a ho-heave-ho and a lusty yell, they swung a beam and a building fell. I asked the foreman, are those men skilled as the men you'd hire if you had to build? He gave a laugh and said, no indeed, just common labor is all I need. I can easily wreck in a day or two what builders have taken a year to do. And I thought to myself as I went my way, which of these roles have I tried to play? Am I a builder who works with care, measuring life by the rule and the square? Am I shaping my deed by a well-made plan, patiently doing the best I can? Or am I a wrecker who walks the town, content with the labor of tearing down? Let us all resolve to rid our world of the wreckers, to respect self and others, to communicate better, to listen, to forgive, to respect nature, to play creatively, to be courageous, and to give thanks to our Creator. God bless America. United we do stand.
We'll see here. Might have to talk loud, which is very difficult for politicians. So. Do you know how this works? You're fine. Oh, am I fine? Okay. I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. We have a lot of people here, but we do have a little agenda. I will like to introduce Sheriff Phil Stametti for some words. I can't see where it was. Try this one right here.
We'll do the test, I guess it's working. I too want to welcome everybody. Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Everybody knows September 11th of 2002 is both a solemn and joyous occasion in Lorain County. Sadness for the terrorism events of 1 year ago today, where more than 3,000 people were tragically killed in America by terrorist acts. Joy for this addition to the enhanced 911 and emergency management agencies, which was desperately needed and a definite plus for the safety of the citizens of Lorain County. I want to thank all three present commissioners, County Administrator Jim Cortez, Karen Davis, the project manager, for their foresight in bringing this addition to completion. I especially want to thank retired Commissioner Herbert Jacoby. Without his vision and work, 911 and EMA would not be the agencies they are today. This addition was badly needed and will allow 911 and EMA staff to do their jobs to the fullest. They're always there assisting the police, fire, ambulance, and other services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I know Tom Kelly personally. I remember when Tom was a dispatcher at the Sheriff's Office. Tom has worked his way up to Director of EMA, and he's done an excellent job. As well as Robin Jones, the Enhanced 911 Director. She's assisted the Sheriff's Office in many ways. We're implementing a computer-aided dispatch right now at the Sheriff's Office, and her agency's helped us out a lot and is going to save us a lot of work. This will ultimately enhance safety for our deputies and all the citizens in Lorain County. In closing, President Bush has declared this day Patriot Day in America in remembrance of September 11, 2001, a day which will never be forgotten by us and a day which will be remembered in history. In 1941, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt made a statement which I believe still holds true today, which states, "We look forward to a world founded upon 4 essential human freedoms. The first is freedom of speech and expression. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way. The third is freedom from want. And the fourth is freedom from fear." Thank you, and God bless everyone.
Thank you, Sheriff. Next, I'd like to introduce State Representative Joseph Kazura.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here this morning on this great event. I would like to thank the commissioners for having the foresight to fund this project along with 911 money. And I know Herb Jacoby was very involved in that because when Herb was running the 911 levy campaign, and he kept bugging me to get all the signs up and helping him, and he was a great leader in that, and he's to be commended for that. So you wonder, what do you say on a day like 911? What's the appropriate words? Often, silence is just as good as anything, but you look back in your life at certain things that happen to you. Your mom dies, your dad dies, you have tragedies, but what affects you so great that isn't even in your immediate family, like a year ago? I can remember the day that John F. Kennedy was shot. I was a senior in high school. I remember it like it was yesterday. I could remember watching on TV when Jack Ruby shot Lee Harvey Oswald live on national TV. The Challenger, the Oklahoma City bombing. Things that happened I saw in Vietnam I wouldn't want to see again. I wouldn't want anyone else to experience. But you know, this great country, this great county is resilient. They just tweaked us a little bit. They might have woke us up. Yeah, we might have lost something. We might have lost our sense that that no one could touch us, because this was an attack on us, our own country. So I thank God every day that I have had the great pleasure of serving in public office and living in this wonderful country. And together, if we can keep that spirit that's kept this country so vibrant and alive and a beacon to this world, we're going to do just fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Also with us today is State Representative Jeffrey Manning.
Thank you. This is not only a day of remembrance for all of us, but it's a day of Thanksgiving and a day of celebration for us here in Lorain County with this new facility. In a strange sort of way, it's a day of Thanksgiving. We have many things to be grateful for here in America and in Ohio, and certainly here in Lorain County. I want to take a short period of time out of my remarks and congratulate the commissioners and the folks at the Emergency Management Agency and 911. And I want to thank and congratulate the taxpayers of Lorain County for their foresight in going forward with a facility such as this. None of us will ever forget a year ago, but we must go ahead. We have to progress. We have to protect and defend freedom, and we have to protect and defend our way of life. This facility is a testament to the fact that there will be other disasters, and terrorism is still a threat. It's a real and present danger to us in America and to us in Ohio. This facility and the men and women who will staff it will help ensure that our way of life will continue and progress here in Lorain County, Ohio, and America. Again, congratulations to our taxpayers, our citizens, and our public officials for their foresight in this wonderful facility. We're prepared. We're all going to have some days of remembrance. I look around the room, I see folks who remember December 7th, 1941. I know Joe remembers the day Kennedy was assassinated, as do I. I remember where I was at when Martin Luther King was assassinated, and now we have another day to remember. Hopefully there will be few to add to that list. Hopefully there'll be none. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, I'd like to introduce Ohio Senator Jeffrey Armbruster.
As I got up this morning at about 6:15 to get the kids with my wife to go to school, you start to think about 911 and what it means to all of us. But I took a moment and actually went outside, which I normally don't do, to reflect just a minute on life as it is, and reflect on the losses not only in my family, but to think of the losses of all the people and all of you that are here. and to think how life is so fragile, that today we are here speaking about this great building and this facility and what we are providing to the residents within this county and beyond. But in an instant, our life could change, our family could change. And to stop and think about the 5 members of my family and wives that I've loved that have left me in life, to think about that process and you just move on. You think about 911 is that when you lose somebody in your own family, you move on by yourself and with your friends. But when you think about what happened on 911, it was actually a challenge to our freedom here in this United States that oftentimes we just take it for granted. And today, as we look at it, we are challenged every day of our life with this freedom that people are trying to take it away from us, from all walks of life, from all races, from all religions. And I hope, quite honestly, that we can still work together as a team, have our differences, have our arguments, but come back together and work together in this United States, which I know we will in this county, to progress and have buildings like this. From a lighter side, Tom, I remember not too long ago, I think you had a pop truck as your EMA vehicle. Is that true? So we've gone from that pop truck in Lorain County, Herb, to this tremendous facility. I've been through it with the rest of with Jeff and Joe and the county commissioners, and I look forward to the opportunity. I hope I never have to call, but I know that I'll be safe when I do. Thank you much.
Thank you, Jeff. Next, one of Lorain County's own, Rich Roman, the Director of Mitigation Information Recovery Division, will have something to say.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to just take a little bit different approach. We've got a lot of remembrance today, a lot of solemnness, but more importantly, I think we've got something to celebrate. Something to celebrate. We're here in this wonderful building today. It's an outstanding accomplishment and commitment of the Lorain County Commissioners to the constituents here on their belief in being prepared for disasters and enhancing the ability to communicate when it's necessary. I would like to give a very special thank you to the Commissioners today for inviting me. As a longtime resident of Lorain County and former Director of the Emergency Management Agency and Services, this place holds a significant place in my heart. And I couldn't believe it when Tom Kelly gave me a tour today and we had a chance to look at exactly what kind of facility we have here and what kind of capabilities exist. It's fantastic. After reading a number of reviews of the World Trade Center's incident, one of the things that was predominant in every review that I looked at, and that was the impact of poor communications had on the ability for the fire department and police department and other law enforcement agencies to interact during that critical few moments where perhaps more lives could have been saved. I think that makes a testimony statement here in Lorain County when we have a facility that's committed to improved communications and increased capability to respond to disasters. The residents here need to be very proud of the direction that the commissioners are providing in this effort. I'd like to get on to the reason that I'm really here, in addition to those few heartfelt comments. In 1995, in an effort to determine a baseline for the degree of disaster preparedness in all 50 states, the Federal Emergency Management Agency came up with an assessment program called Capability Assessment for Readiness, or called CAR. And all 50 states participated in that to determine just how ready are we to deal with disasters of all kind. A report was put together after that study was done and presented to Congress in an effort to say we need to continue to fund these kind of efforts. It has a significant impact on the people. While leading the state of Ohio through this CAR process, I made a decision to develop a comparable document that could be used by the counties so that they could do a self-assessment. And through a joint effort of county emergency managers and the State Emergency Management Agency, OSCAR was born. OSCAR is the Ohio State Capability for Assessment for Readiness. being well aware of the propensity for Lorain County's Emergency Management Agency to be on the leading edge of public safety, I knew that Lorain County could be a primary contributor to this effort. Mr. Tom Kelly and Alice Weber provided significant leadership throughout the development process of Oscar. Finally, once Oscar was complete, Lorain County Commissioners, in a leap of faith, and that was Betty Blair, Mary Jo Vasey, and at that time, Michael Ross, agreed to be the first county in Ohio to use this self-assessment tool. This process enabled Lorain County to further enhance their already outstanding Emergency Management Agency program. Since then, 25 Ohio counties have gone through the Oscar process, and there are 20 more counties that are signed up to do it this year. It is an outstanding success. The Ohio Oscar team received the Quality Service Through Partnership Special Team Award for the development of this program from the governor, Governor Taft. I'd like to provide a small, or I should say a special thank you to Lorain County's EMA team who helped establish Oscar programs in other counties. They were willing to go along with us and help work with other county directors who are a little bit hesitant to try to do this process, because it's quite a revealing process. It's opening up the kimono and saying, this is how we function, this is how good we are, these are our strengths, and these are our weaknesses. And you're allowed to take and focus on those weaknesses and improve your program, which is what has happened. Oscar has and continues to receive rave reviews from its participants. It serves as an excellent and comprehensive preparation for a recently announced National Emergency Management Accreditation Program standard called the EMAP standard. So on behalf of the Ohio Emergency Management Agency and its Executive Director, Mr. Dale Shipley, I'd like to present the Oscar Recognition Achievement signed by the Governor, Bob Taft, and Lieutenant Governor Maureen O'Connor to Lorain County in appreciation of their outstanding commitment, contribution, and dedication to excellence in emergency management. Tom, thank you very much, and Commissioners, thank you very much. I have to admit, Tom said he promised to hang that in an appropriate place, but I was afraid to ask him where. So thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Rich. Let's see, if we could all please stand for the retirement of the flags. Okay. Thank you. If you please be seated. We're now going to move the, if you don't mind joining us out front, we're now going to do the official ribbon cutting of this building, and we'll have some closing statements there. Yeah, well, that's what I want to do for you. Okay. Hey, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. I'd like to thank Mr. Cortez and his staff, Karen Davis, for kind of bringing everybody together, the maintenance, the whole county, 911 and EMA groups. Everybody was up early today to get everything available for everybody to make this an event in which the whole county can participate in. So we also have 911 people that cannot be here because they're actually working at the off-site that we have, so there will be no interruption in services. So a lot of credit goes out to a lot of people that really aren't even here. But I do like to thank everybody here that attended. This is a great day for Lorain. Lorain County. And if you guys are ready, we'd like to cut the ribbon and invite everybody in for some subs and appetizers. Ready? Here we go. We will have private, or not private, VIP tours of the facility. Now if we could stand for the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Let's see. Albert Einstein once said, the important thing is not to stop questioning. I know that was probably too deep today. So.
Well, I'm pondering on it.
Okay.
10:30, there will be the second public hearing to consider the establishing Lorain County building codes. Number 1 under resolutions, job and family bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye. Aye again. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Mr. Moore?
That's 3 votes already. Aye.
Transfers.
Aye. Or so moved.
Really got you confused.
Second.
huh?
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
There are no advances or repayments today. Requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Bills.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
There is no personnel actions today. 10, approve the following Commissioners' Board meeting minutes and waive the reading of the same for July 25th, August 1st, 8th, 15th, 27th, 29th, and September 5th and 12th, 2002.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Authorize the county administrator, county sanitary engineer, and assistant county prosecutor to negotiate and reach an agreement with the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District for entry into NeoSword to serve negotiated and agreed upon portions of Columbia Township. This request has unanimous support from the township trustees and is pursuant to the recently completed preliminary engineering report for Columbia Township Sanitary Sewer Plan received from K.E. McCartney and Associates on September 19, 2002.
So moved.
I'll second. I thought Mr. Cortez would
Discuss.
give us an overview.
Right.
I'd be happy to, Commissioners. As you know, we've been working the past 3 or 4 months towards an agreement with NeoSword to accept effluent flow from agreed-upon portions of Columbia Township. We completed the tributary study. I have had an opportunity this week to talk to Commissioner Vacy about that earlier. I will be talking to the other 2 commissioners, and I have a copy of the report for you. I made a call to Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. I overnighted a couple copies of the report to them, and they're going to have their engineers look at it, and then we're going to sit down and we're going to try to hammer out an agreement. I'm hoping that by sometime mid to late October that we have an agreement in hand, which is a major step in working towards the supporting of Columbia Township and their needs for sewers, specifically down in their corridors that are feeling considerable pressure for development and annexation. So very pleased with the way this is going, and things are coming along very nicely.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy? Authorize the modification subsidy agreement between the Ohio Department of Health and Lorain County Board of Commissioners. The FY03 GRF subsidy agreement needs to reflect a decrease amount to $244,667 for the period July 1st, 2002 through June 30th, 2003, and authorize the President or Vice President to execute on behalf of the Board for Children and Family First Council.
So move. I'll second.
Discussion. Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Under Lorain County Department of Job and Family Services, approve and enter in daycare services contract with the Department of Job and Family Services in Kitty College, Sheffield Village, Ohio, effective expiring December 31st, 2002. The maximum amount reimbursed for children enrolled in a child care center is based on state reimbursement ceilings, which are set for the age of the child and the amount of time the child attends the center, and authorize the President or Vice President to execute on behalf of the Board.
So move. Second.
Madam Clerk, there's a date missing there.
Yeah, after effective.
Effective.
It should be August 19, 2002 through December 31st, 2002.
Okay.
Unless we want to start this Monday. That's what this contract says.
Excuse me?
The contract says August 19, 2002.
This is a daycare contract, correct? Commissioners, what happens with the daycare contract is eligible recipients of service go out and they're allowed to seek out their daycare. Once they get the daycare they want, it takes some time for the paperwork to follow them, but they're able to utilize those services. So that's why you see these contracts backdated a little bit. Has nothing to do with the effectiveness and efficiency of the people over at Job and Family Services. This is just the way the process is designed. So I'm very comfortable with that contract as being backdated.
I'm just glad we're getting contracts.
Thank you, sir.
We already have a motion. Do we need to amend it or no?
No.
Okay.
Second? Is there a second?
Well,
Yeah.
let the motion reflect that the date of August 19th is the effective date.
I'll second.
Well, I think we already had a motion. I made the
Okay.
motion.
I have a motion. I didn't have a second.
Okay,
Oh, and I thought Commissioner
Commissioner
Vacy
Vacy
seconded.
I did too. I'm sorry.
I wrote it down. If she didn't, I wrote it down anyway.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy? Aye. Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Thank you, Teresa.
Approve and enter into purchase a service contract with Lorain County Urban League for fossilization of group discussions, which will assist in workplace success for participants related to the Pathways Program. Agreement is effective retroactive to August 1st, 2002 through June 30th, 2003, in the amount of $3,276. Authorize the President or Vice President to execute on behalf of the Board, and authorize Mary Lou Golsky, Director, Department of Job and Family Services, to execute the contract on behalf of the Commissioners as needed with County Prosecutor's approval as to a form.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Under Domestic Relations Court, approve and enter an operating agreement with Airmark Correctional Services, Oak Brook, Illinois, to provide food service for the detention home and residential complex. The original agreement was entered into October 5, 2000 for a 2-year period with a 1-year renewal option. The agreement is effective October 9, 2002 through October 8, 2003 at $2.786 per meal for residents and $1.50 for staff. Funds are available in Domestic Relations Court, Juvenile Detention Home Contract Services.
So moved.
I'll second. I believe there's no increase in that. That's a continuation of the contract. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Is there a discussion?
I'm sorry.
That's what we were doing.
No, I was just taking a vote.
I just have a question. The sheriff is here. The $1.50 for the employees, do they reimburse that? Do they pay for it, or
This
is
is
that a part of their benefits?
Commissioner, this is domestic relations detention home.
I know, but are they here?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, okay. They pay for that? Do you have this at the sheriff's department also? Okay, thank you. You need my vote? Aye.
Under Engineers, approve and enter in subdivision and escrow agreements between the Board of Commissioners and Scott Dillon Developer for Ravens Edge Subdivision Number 2, Carlisle Township. The developer has deposited $663,202.62 in escrow to be held by Statewide Settlement Services, Fairview Park, Ohio, for this project. The liability insurance and escrow agreement are also attached. Engineer's office and prosecutor's office has reviewed and recommends approval and authorized President or Vice President to execute on behalf of the board.
Also move.
I'll second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
County Administrator, Ms. Cortez?
I have no comments or reports this morning.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor?
No report.
Commissioners report?
Commissioner Vacy?
I have nothing today.
Commissioner Blair?
I have no prepared statement today, thank you.
I have none.
Old business?
None.
New,
None.
new business?
I have none.
None.
None here.
Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
I feel sorry for those people that think, a lot of people show up at 10 o'clock thinking we're still here. We have a 10:30 public hearing regarding the establishment of Lorain County building codes. I think Jared's going to tell us we can't start now, right? Right? That's right. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? Should we hear a public hearing? Just have public...
Is there anybody else here?
Public comment?
Yeah, maybe we go through public
Other
comment?
than, yeah.
Okay, because we're going to have our public hearing at 10:30. I believe some people came last time, and we didn't allow the public to speak at that time. And so we're going to have our public, we might as well have our public discussion now. If anybody has anything they'd like to say, please come up to the podium, state your name, and...
Shirley R. Johnson, Oberlin. I came to speak, I wasn't going to speak about anything, but as you said, the last time you had the public hearing and it was early and people came and wanted to speak, and I think one of them actually requested to speak after the public hearing and was not allowed to. So I would like to suggest that since your meeting is over much sooner than anyone would have expected, that you allow for a second public hearing at the end of your meeting.
I think she meant second public discussion after the hearing. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Bob?
Yeah, Bob Kish, Elyria. A committee of one gets things done. I forgot who said it. Anyhow, I was looking at letter number 9 from New Russia Township expressing their views and sees no need to institute a countywide building code at this time. And to a point, I agree with that. Each township has the ability to address building codes as the need arises. However, any building code should have some enforcement to it so that it's applied equally. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Anybody else have any comment?
He's going to talk on the building code. You should ask.
If it's regarding the building code, we're going to have a meeting.
This is regarding the building code.
Well, then we're going to wait until 10:30. Yeah, because that's a public hearing.
Oh, that's...
And we can't.
Unless he's going to leave.
Unless, are you leaving?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
That's when we document it, so. Okay, thanks. How about this? Any public comment? Other than the building codes. Yeah.
My name is Maureen Weichel, and I'm owner of Prestigious Motor Cars, and we rent off the Lorain County, our building at 40.5 East Avenue. We've been given an eviction notice as of the 30th of this month. We have tried very hard to find buildings, but if anybody knows anything about the building, it's in Elyria, it's either too small, too big. Well, we finally found one. And 3 weeks ago, we started a process when we found the building. We are buying the building through Lorain, Ohio Realty, Northern Ohio Realty, and Fifth Third National is handling our financing. Unfortunately, it's not going as fast as we wish. At this time, what I'm asking for is an extension of any given time. We're hoping that within 20 to 30 days, we will be able to be out of the building. And at this time, the only thing I'm doing is just asking for permission to get an extension so that we could, stay there until we can move out. Everything at this point seems to be going in the right direction. And like I said, the only thing we're asking is time. We have no place to go. I know if the eviction takes place on the 30th, I'm in the parking lot, not a business. And
You talked to the prosecutor's office about this?
Yes, I did. I talked to a gentleman there, and I really can't remember his name.
Mr. Ennis?
Pardon?
Are you handling it, Jerry?
Mr. Flanagan's handling this particular situation for us.
Okay.
And that's, you know, this is, I turned in the paperwork, I gave everybody a copy of the, and I have additional copies here of the purchase agreement and the name of the lady at the bank who's handling our affairs, and that's it.
Okay.
Commissioners, I received the packet from Mrs. Weichel yesterday. This issue is a matter of litigation. I turned the package over to our designated representative to deal with this issue with Ms. Weichel's designated representatives. Should you wish to care or desire to talk about this, we should move into executive session, as this is a matter of litigation right now.
What would you recommend?
I would recommend that we discuss it in executive session.
Okay.
If that's the desire of this board, prior to
We have
moving on the issue.
40 minutes before we have to come back for the public hearing.
Is Bob available, though? I'm sure Bob would have to attend. Bob?
Yes, I can either brief you at where we're at, or I can seek out Mr. Flanagan. We have some time. I'm sure he may be available.
Okay.
Is anybody else who can move into executive session if there's no one else who wants to?
Is there anybody else who has any wish to speak regarding any public opinion? If not, I'll move to executive session and we can discuss your issues right now.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy? Aye.
Have Jerry Ennis address an issue that was brought up earlier.
Just to report back regarding our executive session, Ms. Weichel. We did discuss this in executive session with the commissioners. The commissioners have considered your request. They have given me some instructions, which I will forward on to Attorney Flanagan, who is handling the case. Since you are represented, it would not be proper for us to discuss this with you directly. So our board's attorney, Mr. Flanagan, will be contacting your attorney with a response to your inquiry and try to see if we can't resolve that issue.
Okay. Thank you, Jerry. Teresa?
This is a public hearing, the second one, to consider the establishment of Lorain County building codes.
Okay. I'll admit I kind of made a mistake last time, so we're going to limit discussions to 3 minutes each. How's that? So, I think it was a long discussion last time. So how do you guys want to, what's the pleasure of the board? Is there how many people, let's do this. Anybody want to speak today? Let's raise their hands. How's that? We got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. We might go more than 3 minutes, but I tell you what, why don't we let the people speak first, and maybe we'll have a discussion. Is that fine? Okay. If you could please come to the podium, mention your name, and anybody that is in favor of this, could you please step on up to the podium?
Good morning. My name is Ken Roth. I'm Township Trustee from Columbia Township, and I would like to speak in favor of the proposed legislation and thank the commissioners for taking it under consideration. I would like to thank Ron's staff for crafting a comprehensive legislation that protects the autonomy of the townships. Townships in the southern part of the county that may not feel a need or pressure for a building code would be able to opt out and not be affected. Anyone who has a building code in place could opt out and not be affected. In Columbia Township, when I was a youngster, we really didn't need building codes. We kind of mirrored the southern townships. If I built a house, I had Ed Smith dig the basement and put in the septic system, and I had Dick Pierce do the block work, and I had the Knopf brothers do the construction work, because we knew each other, we knew the value and skill that was involved. Now we're getting pressure from two sides, from Lorain County, or from Cuyahoga County and Medina County. We've got over 40 housing starts so far this year, and we have builders that are now speculating, and there's no rules or regulations by which they need to abide, and it is causing significant problems. Each individual township has problems to go on their own. There is economy and scale, which I think this legislation would address, and it would help us in the townships have a consistent enforcement across all the townships that adopt the code. Thank you for your time, and if there's any questions directed to the trustees, either myself or Dale Runner would be more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you for coming in. Anybody else in favor?
Good morning. My name is Rob Scheitauer. I'm an Elyria Township trustee, and I'm speaking on behalf of our board of trustees. We are also in favor of the building codes, and we hope the commissioners do go with a positive attitude toward this so Lorain County can be a leader instead of somebody to follow up on the other counties. I'd like to hear some, hopefully before we leave, on what Wood County's doing if we have time, and I understand Ron was supposed to look into something like that, so I just appreciate your time and your consideration on looking at this avenue. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rob. Anybody in favor?
My name's Mike Milcarrick. I'm Sheffield Township trustee. I wish I could say I was representing the whole township, but we could not get quorum on this, so basically I'm here as a township official and as a single voice. Maybe I'm just a general public now in a case like that, because it does take 2 trustees to accept this. I'm in favor of it very much. Right now we're basically a suburb of Lorain and Elyria, where they do have building inspectors, and unfortunately a good chunk of the people will build a nice house because they're living in it. But we do have people that come in the area that basically they think they have 2 2x4s, they're going to build a house, and they try to sell it to people. And I think there's safety in numbers here. That's something with the county doing it. You'll have a impartial inspector or inspectors in a case like that, and I think that would help raise the standard of our housing in our township, because as we get sewers there, we have quite a bit of acreage left that will have houses. And also with some of our lower income houses, it's getting to the point now where you could buy that house and have a lot to tear it down. So I wish you would very seriously consider going forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Anybody else in favor? Okay, anybody in opposition like to make a statement?
I'm a Sheffield Township trustee, Tim Mahalsick. On this thing of accepting these building codes, at this time, we have mixed emotions about it. We don't think we really know enough about it yet to really deal with it, that if we really need it in Sheffield Township, because we are a little bit different than Elyria Township. We do have sewers in most of the part of our township. About the only thing we really lack is some like sidewalks and stuff, and I don't know if that's a big issue with the people. I don't know if the people are ready for getting everything inspected now. I don't know if it's going to be something they're going to pull their hair out for. If they got to spend more money than they're spending now. They're spending a lot on taxes with the Clearview area and everything like that. They're pretty well strapped. As far as at meetings in the townships, at the 18 different townships we go to, I hear different things being said like, well, we got this problem, we got that problem, houses falling apart. Personally, in the township, I don't see any houses falling apart. It's that houses get so old. Elyria and Lorain have houses that are getting old and they're falling apart from age. As bad as far as shoddy contractors, you would think that people that were building a house wouldn't go with the cheapest bid all the time and maybe get shoddy contractors, that they would have a little bit of pride and dignity in what they're having built and not take the cheapest bid. At this time, I'm not saying it's good and bad, and we haven't made a decision on it, but it's a thing for us to think about. It's not all just a building code, it's the people themselves on what they want built. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you for coming. Anybody else against?
My name's Gene Spansky, Eaton Township trustee. I'm sorry I got out of line there, but we are in favor of the building codes. One question I did have it's my own personal feelings. If we go to each township having their own inspectors and stuff like that, I don't know if that's going to affect the thing down the road or not, because one guy's going to let you put your 2x8 flooring joists in, another guy wants 2x10s. So that's going to confuse the builder. I would like to see a county-wide building inspection team. And I believe in the near future, there's going to be enough work to keep them busy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else against?
Ken Prechtel, Carlisle Township. I didn't hear my category called, Mr. Moore.
Are you
I would like to identify it as middle of the road.
That was next. That's next.
Or straddling the fence.
We'll call that just Switzerland, okay?
While we recognize that the county does need a building code, our main question was in the administration of the code. Since I attended the last public hearing with on the Lorain County building codes, I personally am pleased to report that some dialogue finally opened up between Mr. Twining and Rebecca Jones. They attended our trustee meeting on September the 16th, made an excellent presentation for the people that were in the audience. A lot of the stuff that I heard and Trustee Wright heard was basically a reiteration of what we heard at the commissioners' meeting. It was beneficial to Trustee Taylor because he got to hear an objective presentation as to information that we had carried back. What we accomplished at that meeting with Mr. Twining and Ms. Jones, that we are going to have a informational meeting, which apparently there are some people in today's audience seeking more information. We had tentatively scheduled it for October 30th. The letters have gone out. I personally am going to have a scheduling conflict for that meeting, but if we can't work out a small change, I'm perfectly confident that the meeting can go forth, and based on the knowledge that our building department has and the other trustees have, that my presence or absence would really make a whole lot of difference. The point is that the dialogue has opened up, and some of the concerns that maybe you're here today that haven't been brought out will have the opportunity at the informational meeting to address those concerns. I think that the nitpicky part of the problems have really been addressed, and now it's time to sit down with Lorain County Planning and fine-tune it. I would suggest, as I heard from the gentleman from Ohio Building Standards that was at the last meeting, that the Board of Commissioners take a serious, in-depth look at the impact, because the way I heard it, the civil service position that may be created that could generate some expenses that haven't really been looked at and addressed. I did hear a trustee say that builders love to come to Lorain County because $8,000 could be saved by building in Lorain County because we didn't have a building code. I don't think it was ever the intent of Mr. Twining and his research that there'd be $8,000 worth of fees attached to the fact of a building code. And that's where the serious issues that Carlisle has is the administration of it, fee structure, these type of things that I feel working with Mr. Twining and his staff, and that these things can be addressed. The fact that some townships can opt in, some can opt out. That's all well and good, but the code would still be in place. The important thing would be to have the code, but then the big questions is the fees and the administrations of the code and what the cost would be to the county if they chose to be an administrator. We have offered our services to help on that. Mr. Twining didn't react negatively to the idea. He thought that possibly it was a legitimate proposal. Carlisle doesn't profess to be the savior of all this, but we have, since the last meeting, checked into the credential of our building department and the direction that we're heading, and we have been assured that we are on the right track. Further dialogue is in the works that will make us an entity in this. Other than that, I'm very, very happy or satisfied since the last meeting of the willingness of the Lorain County Planning to go into this a lot farther and research some of these questions that could be expensive to the commissioners. Mr. Moore said at the last meeting that he, as a representative of all the taxpayers in Lorain County, certainly wouldn't want to have a building code and the administration of that code put a burden on taxpayers other than the people that are basically being represented. Could be wrong on that, but that's my feeling.
Well,
But anyway.
oh, you're still going?
Yeah.
Up to a minute. I'm going to allow some more time after. I would like to have Ron Twining come up, because some of the issues that you're bringing up right now, I'm going to ask Ron to address. So if you don't mind, I will allow more public speaking after Mr. Twining speaks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ron, I'm going to kind of go out on a limb here, okay?
Sure.
I'm not agreeable. I'm agreeable with the plan in itself that we do need a countywide building code. I disagree at the cost. And what I'm wondering is, I believe we need a director's position. This is just my own personal opinion. And just in the public, I don't know. I'd rather see it as a director that reports to the commissioners and then have him sub it out, which what I'm afraid of is, this is one of those deals where I hate to use the word revenue, but this is just more, we're going to be taxing the builders to come in, get to build more homes, correct? That's basically, we're going to be charging fees for building inspections and such. And I'm wondering, have you done a projection of 10 years out on the possibility of how much revenue will be coming in so that we can budget the right way to do this, which is, I believe personally, what I've heard from talking to people is about $250,000 to do it right countywide instead of start out with 20 grand here, because for 20,000 bucks, there is no way you're gonna, I can't see even one community. I can see that guy just spending time in one community instead of one or two, and to do it slow and easy, I think it's just gonna cause a bigger disaster. So I guess my question is, have you designed, have you projected out the revenue that could be received by implementing this project, for 10 years?
We have not projected out 10 years because we didn't know whether this was going to be a policy established by the Board of Commissioners or not. We did put together a tentative first-year budget for year 2003. Rebecca has that information. It was shared with the county commissioners. The $250,000 number that you threw out, I think, is realistic if it's for the entire unincorporated areas. I think safely it's a number that's more, you're going to I think Commissioner Vasey's survey is a true reflection of the collective townships. You probably have 13 or 14 that I'm guessing for the first 3 or 4 years will not opt into this, will not be a part of the district. You have 4 and possibly 3 that will be a part of this district. If you want us to put together numbers, projections for a 10-year period, we're going to hold this public meeting on September 30th, unless it's changed. October 30th, I'm sorry. Unless it's changed from what Mr. Prechtel said today. We're prepared to do it at the Carlisle Fire Station on the 30th of October. We can have those numbers for then, but we're contracting this out.
Well,
and if the board wants to have us do numbers based on full-time position and things like that, we can do it whatever way that the Board of Commissioners.
well, I'm sure you're going to probably start out with a contract, and we're probably going to, I would like to see maybe a couple options. I'm not asking for just one option.
Okay.
What I'm asking for is I don't want to look at a one-year budget and create something. I'd like to see what's our we know how many homes, everyone's predicting, these homes are going to be coming in the next, 5 to 10 years, 1,900 homes a year. Well, they got those numbers, so you should be able to calculate how much it's going to cost now and how much we can charge to offset the cost to the taxpayers on creating a department, because I think we should basically, we're going to eventually have to create a department, because if not, we start hiring a consultant all the time. We don't know who loyalties those consultants are going to be in each and every community. And I personally think if we're going to create a county-wide building code, we're the 3 commissioners. I think the person should report to us, because we're the elected official.
Right.
We're accountable, and he's accountable to us, or she's accountable to us. That's just my own personal opinion, but I don't want to create it without knowing the costs involved to have something like that.
The proposal that went to the commissioners said that it would be contracted out for a 3 to 5 year period of time until we got enough of the areas that were in there, and then it would be truly a building department that would be standalone. We can adjust that. We can give you the options if you want to create one.
Well, that's option one. As far as I'm concerned, that's option one.
Okay.
I think we should have maybe an option 2 and a 3 and a 4 if there is one.
I hope so, because I'm not sure I'm entirely in favor of option 1. When you talk about $250,000 to begin with,
Well, that's not option 1.
What is option 1?
Well, he just said the subcontracting it all out.
Okay, but I was listening to you as well, and I
appreciate that.
I'm trying.
What I'm saying, I've heard to do it up right. I've heard from talking to people that this is if somebody wants to say, let's do it tomorrow, pull the trigger, boom. Now we got a county-wide system, and you need $250,000 to do it. Well, you know what? I'm probably not going to support something like that because you've created another bureaucracy with costs. Okay, so maybe this could be a way to bring a lot of ideas together and slowly get to the end result without the whole county paying for it. Maybe just through the development of Lorain County, it can be established and developed. But I need to see financially what's it going to cost to have something like this. That's all. I've seen the actual one, but I don't think it's realistic.
We will be happy, if that's the request of the Board of Commissioners, to do several scenarios for you so that you can choose the one that you think is most viable. I will posture a little bit here and say that I don't see this as revenue or taxation by any other means. I would characterize this as fee-based, that this is a service provided for the protection of residents in Lorain County, and we are charging for that service, and so it's really a user's fee. Now, Mr. Reagan, President Reagan, made a career out of user fees versus taxation, so by any other name.
Just had to use a Republican president.
Ron, when you talk about protection, I think personally, and I could be wrong, but protection is already there because whoever builds that home has the protection legally against shoddy contractors by going to the law and putting a lawsuit on the contractor. But what's going to happen if we get, say, an inspector? What liability is that going to put on the county? Now we've got the inspector and the county involved in what could be a lawsuit.
That gets back to the whole issue of whether it's contracted or a civil service employee. If it's an employee, the county has to carry that insurance. If it's contracted out, you can require as a part of that contract that you're offering both for the building official and the building inspectors that they carry, you know, the necessary insurance and protection to, you know, hold harmless as much as possible the county from their errors and omissions and all of the other things.
I think I have several concerns, just as Commissioner Moore and Ken brought up the fact, too, that all the county residents will be paying if we use general fund money.
Correct.
And just like the survey showed, there's a lot of townships that are not interested in this. You've got Lorain and Lorain that have their own inspectors. How do we eliminate that? I mean, are the fees going to cover the cost of the inspector?
The fees
I think that's
are
what he's
covering
asking.
the inspections. They are not covering the building official, the person over top of those
I
inspectors.
thought that's what you're going to bring those numbers to us.
Right.
And are those fees regulated by the state, or can we increase those fees to offset our costs?
There are fees published by the state, but we can regulate those. We did check, as was mentioned at the last meeting, Wood County, and we have that information. Rebecca will share that as well. Our fees that we were proposing are in line with Wood County, more so than the state's fees.
Okay.
But yeah, that's something that if it's truly established by the Board of Commissioners, the commissioners will set those fees, not individual townships, and that may be good or bad depending on your perspective. I would hope that you would listen to the member townships of the district before you consider, you know, what those fees will be.
No, I agree, but it's one of those,
right?
You know, we're in a chicken egg. I just want to get, if we get more information.
And we can get that.
Okay. That
And
way.
then another thing that I got out of the survey, too, is control. And I think that that's what Carlisle Township did when they hired the building inspector and put their codes together. They kept control. And if we have a county building inspector and it comes under the commissioners, then the commissioners have control and the township trustees lose that control. And I don't know, but that was a major issue that was addressed in the survey.
I think that's why they have the ability to opt in or opt out.
Right.
Now legally, I mean, the way I read it is, and I don't take offense, but we're going to basically, the county's going to oversee it. And I just think whether or not you want to opt in or opt out is you know, something we're going to try to say. But I think it's going to be political suicide for us to come in. If you already have something established, why would we want to duplicate that service if you're already providing those services?
But will the code be the same for every township?
Well,
Even
if
if
they're the elected
they opt
officials.
out, just like Carlisle
Yeah.
Township now, are your codes going to match the code that we put together?
Well, let me piggyback on that
Okay.
question. What are Carlisle's options if, in fact, the county adopts a countywide building code? What are Carlisle's options then, Ron?
I'll take a stab at this, but I think Jerry is the appropriate person.
No,
It
is
would
that
be-
why he's turned his microphone on?
He's trying to protect me.
Okay.
I would say that Carlisle has the same options as Columbia or same option as Huntington Township. If the county establishes the building codes, then the way we've tried to set this district up, any township, in order to be a part of that district, has to pass a local resolution. And as I said to the Carlisle Township officials at their Monday meeting, if they do not pass a local resolution asking to be a part of the county's building code district, they're not a part of it. They can continue on with their building department as they have established it and set it up.
Well, but let me go on one step further because I need to have this clarified, and I think that this is what Commissioner Vacy is asking. I think it's crucial for us to know this. If they want a building code and they do not adopt ours, then what are their options?
And that I'm going to let Jerry answer. Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. Presently, as it stands right now, any township they can form their own building department. They can adopt any building code that any other public entity has. What townships are not permitted to do is formulate their own building code. They have to use or adopt somebody else's building code. So As it stands now, Carlisle, I'm not sure they can use the state one, they can use Illyria's, Lorain's. If we adopt a code and they do not opt into ours, they could still just choose to adopt our code and enforce it themselves, okay? And what we've tried to do is set this up so that we can address all the various options that the townships want, because some townships have said, we don't want a building code, we don't want anything at all, so we're going to respect that. Nothing that we're doing is going to make any township anywhere adopt any kind of building standards. We have some townships saying, we want a building code, but we want to enforce it and run it ourselves. They're still going to be able to do that, all right? The third option, we have townships saying, we want a building code, we don't have the money or you know, it's going to be too expensive for us to run it, so we would want the county to run it. Now, necessarily, when the county runs it and the county pays for it, you do give up a little bit of control with it, but that's the tit for the tat there. We're trying to moderate that control a little bit by implementing a way in which we will, by contracting for the inspectors, we can at least get individual inspectors that each township wants. But like Ron says, even in that case, the individual inspectors will have to report back to the overall supervisor, and the overall general guidelines and rules that the inspectors follow have to be established by a centralized place, and that will be the county. So there's really going to be 4 options for the townships. Just stay out all together and just continue just like they always have. They could adopt their own building code, their own departments, and go their own route, or they can opt into this and use the county to enforce its building code.
So even though at the last public hearing, they came up with a resolution from, I think, 77 that said that if there's already one in place, that I think that's what one of the concerns were, that we could actually force it on them, but I guess that's what I was referring to.
Yes, the commissioners do have the authority to say, we're implementing a countywide building code and this is it, and that would eliminate all the townships. I think we, from where it goes, said we're not even...
But we're not interested in that. So if we pass the resolution... Well, let me ask you, if we pass the resolution with the 4 options, is that in stone then, at that point?
What do you mean by in stone?
Well, I don't want someone 10 years from now changing it and then coming in when you might have a successful operation over here in Carlisle Township running, and then all of a sudden there's another board 10, 15 years from now, and they come in and say, you know what, we're going to take over everything.
Well, that's always state law. That's all. Whether you do it now or you do nothing, a board 10 years from now can come in and say,
yeah, I know,
we're establishing...
Okay, I guess that's what I was referring to. It could be political suicide, though, if you wanted to do that, you know?
You can't limit future boards from what...
No, I'm not limiting, but that's what we're trying to do, is give everybody 4 options, and... Okay.
And as you put that on the table, Commissioner Moore, we can't lose sight of the fact that for at least the last 5 to 8 years, state legislator has thought about adopting a state building code that would affect all areas, including the township. So even if you pass this, our crystal ball, we can give you a 10-year forecast, but if this fall, which I don't think will be the case, but next year or the year after this state building code is passed, I think our recommendation would be that we then fall under the state. So, you know, there are some variables out there that we can't predict. We can just give you our best estimate at this point.
Okay.
Isn't there something that the legislators are talking about now? Isn't there a House bill or Senate bill?
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. And they've talked about that for the last at least 5 years doing that.
Okay, it's like the annexations went on for 30 years and never happened, but do we have any idea at all where that stands now, where that bill stands? Is it in...
I know what my personal feeling is. That bill is the same place annexation was about 6 years ago. And it's going to be 6 years before the state does anything. But that's a personal opinion based on conversations I've had with other county officials and some of the legislators. But I like to throw that out there just to see if I'm right or wrong. I'm going to be one or the other.
At one point, there were rumors it was like a done deal.
Right.
And we started talking with various contacts, and it's not at all a done deal, but I think Ron's assessment is correct. It is under serious consideration, and of course, if the state takes it over, then
44.
But can't people, aren't we to use the state code now? Isn't that happening in townships now?
For commercial and industrial,
That's it?
and for 4-unit residential, not for 1, 2, and 3 residential. We're only talking about adopting
Right.
building codes for 1, 2, and 3 residential. It's also, as a good reminder, important to point out that 44 of the 88 counties in Ohio currently have some form of building codes throughout their entire county area. Typically, it's been a county-passed building code. Some of them just don't have townships any longer, like Cuyahoga County. Well, they've got one. But, there are only 44 that have certain areas that have building codes and certain areas that don't. Lorain County's in that bottom half.
So what I'm hearing here is that we can have like maybe 18 different codes if everybody adopts a different code?
If the county does nothing, that could happen, yeah.
Even if we do something, but we're allowing the townships to make a decision whether or not they want to put their own building
right, but
codes
we wouldn't
together.
be enforcing 18 different codes.
Right.
We would only, if they want us to enforce, we would have, and that's what we're talking about.
Right.
This would be the code that would be used if they want us to enforce it, is what it amounts to.
By the survey that you sent out, if we follow that, one would make the case that we probably realistically wouldn't have, at the worst case scenario, 18 different building codes. You'd have about 70% that would have no building codes or could pass someone else's building codes, but you still would have about 30% that would fall under the county. So you could make the argument it may not be 18 different, but you may have 14 or 15 under the worst case scenario.
Well, you already know who wants to opt in? I think you have an idea.
This will be in print, and I'll regret this.
Well, then why don't we
Phone calls, but I'm
let me
saying-
back up. I'll ask this question. This is where I'm leading to is, since you have an idea of who might be opted in, that'd probably be the only way to really budget on how much revenue and how much work you're going to have. So if you could
I
kind of
think
gear
there
it
are 4
towards that.
townships that are ready to opt in
Okay.
fairly soon after, if you set up this department.
And that's another, I don't want to complicate matters, but that's the other option you have. You can set this up to just ahead of time figure out who's going to be in and say, all right, we have these 3 or 4 that have already passed resolutions saying they want in, and then just form a district with those 3 or 4, and then go through these hearings anytime anybody else wants to opt in. The way we've suggested is set it up for an automatic opt-in just by them passing a resolution and not have to go through these hearings every time.
But at the October 30th meeting, that may be an issue. We've talked to Carlisle. That may be an issue that they want some comfort that we've identified by resolution and a map the 3 or 4 townships it wants in. So that's one of the things we'll talk about on the 30th. We'll resolve that, but it's going to play into this 10-year projection. That's why we have not spent the time trying to do that till we're farther down the road.
Okay. It's just one of those things where I don't want to pull the trigger on something and see it be just,
We're farther along now than we've been in 30 years. So.
I know.
Well, and that's why, it was brought up at the last meeting. These 2 hearings that we're having now are the 2 required ones. We can extend this, although we don't want to let it ride on indefinitely, but, so that we can go out to Carlisle and wherever else we need to go to. And if this board wants to have more public hearings, you can always have more continuing discussion on this. You're not under any time deadline legally to adopt this at this point. The hearing we had 2 weeks ago and this one are the 2 that you're required by law.
if I can take my 3 minutes, and I'm not sure, I'm probably like Mr. Prechtel on the fence. My feeling that needs to be expressed today is there's a couple of important points that were touched on both at the last meeting and this meeting. Everybody needs to understand that in 1998, as part of the land use planning process, we took a look at all of the township areas and the CAUV enrolled farmland and transfers. And in that year, I believe the number, if my memory serves me right, 63% of the CAUV enrolled land that was sold, farmland that was used for row crop productions, that was sold in 1999, 63% of those properties sold went to landholding companies, and clearly the majority were outside of the county. You can make the speculation that is probably being bought in anticipation of a housing boom sometime during the next 20 years. We're trying in part to allow the townships to get in front of that. The other thing that I think it's important to at least publicly state, you have communities that are villages with populations less than 5,000. You have several of our cities that have populations 5,000 to 8,000, and you have a good number of townships that are approaching 7,000, 10,000 in population and growing. Cities and villages have building codes. The townships, at least the ones that are more heavily populated, but their population is spread out over their 25 square miles, some of them are saying, we're big enough, but we're not a city and we're not incorporated, we're not a village, but we want some guidance and some authority, the ability to regulate some of these houses that are presently coming 40 at a time and may increase to 100 at a time. We heard that message, and all we're trying to do is to find a happy medium to help them if that's the board's pleasure, and not to hold back or force something on the townships like Carlisle and the smaller that feel that development pressure is not upon them. And that's all we're trying to meet. That's what our message was to Carlisle Township, and we are thankful that they've talked to it. And we'll explore every option, financing and options with Carlisle or any other township that is reasonable.
Okay. Thanks, Ron. Do you have any
My 3 minutes are up.
Anybody have any more? If you have a statement, you could. No, after Ron spoke, I was allowing everybody to speak again. So if you'd like to, you can come on up, and I'm not asking for or against. If anybody has any public comments, we'd like to hear them.
I really didn't intend to. My name is Ernie Walker of Eaton Township Trustees, and most honorable commissioners, I did not really come with intentions of making a statement, but there's a few things that's come up that I think that I should address what our opinion of what's going on. In the first place, as far as control by the county goes on the building departments, the county controls the health board at the present time, and we have no problem with that. The county controls the engineering department, and we work very well with them. You know, this would be just, the sheriff's department is a third example of county-controlled departments that the townships work well with. This is just going to be another one. As far as the fees go, we have a good example of what has happened in the past. At the present time, we have our commercial building codes. Everything from 4 units up is controlled by commercial building codes. That's a state code. It's supplied by, in I think almost every township, you have a private entity that supervises it. The fees are paid to the township clerk, who pays each of the inspectors in turn out of these fees, and there's actually a little bit left over for the township. I don't see this as costing the county any additional funds. If it's operated right, I mean, we're talking today of anybody that's going to build a house, they're going to pay between $15,000 and $20,000 for a septic system, a few $1,000s for a building code. Mr. Prechtel took my comment a little out of turn there when he said $8,000. I was the one that said $8,000. I was referring not just to fees, but I was referring also to the fact that the builders could get away with doing certain things in their construction to add up to the $8,000. But I really believe that if we have in place now an example in the state code that shows how it can be operated fee-wise, and it can be self-supporting. And I really would encourage you to take a strong look at that. I'm the last one that wants to see another bureaucracy. We do need one single person to oversee it, to see to it that the fees are distributed properly and so forth. That person might need or probably will need a secretary eventually. But outside of that, I don't see any other county staff. It all should be done with private industry, because I'm a firm believer in private industry can do it better and cheaper. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Anybody else for any public comment?
Rob Scheitauer again from Elyria Township. I do believe the trustees should have control of their township, and I do believe the commissioners should have control of Lorain County. And the only way to have control is to have a building code. You people would know what's going on. We are going to have some growth. You can't close your eyes 10 years from now. You're going to have more houses than you can shake a stick at. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't mean to stir up a hornet's nest, Chairman Moore. I appreciate the fact and the questions that you ask of Mr. Twining, and we appreciate the fact that you're looking at something as large as this, completely in-depth, because it's something we need and want. To address Mary Jo, she suggested possibly we could have 18 different codes because 18 townships could run out and adopt whatever they want. Personally, Mary, I don't think that would happen. I think that everybody has really been looking at the Obaka 99, and probably in the end that would be the one that most would institute. I also feel that the smaller townships, Penfield, Brighton, those areas that maybe will come on board 30 years down the road, or as high as 50 years as Mr. Twining projected, they probably will take a long look at what the other communities are doing. All the negatives that I've heard out there primarily is with some of the city codes, which are very strangulating compared to the latitude that the code that's being looked at here provides. I'm glad that the questions have been raised about the administration of it. I don't say that Carlisle can be an administrator or a contractor to the commissioners. We are available. We have people in position to do what it would take to generate the reports necessary so that you guys were in on all the information and certainly would be able to answer a lot of those questions. We project in Carlisle with the fact that the sewers are coming, that we could see growth. We have looked at the acreage that Mr. Twining has looked at, and we know for a fact that certain acreage in the Indian Hollow area would accommodate both sides of the roads up to 1,000 homes. We know that the people that own the property, and we know what they do to make a living, and that's building houses. Everything that I've heard today is positive, because a decision that you make, and Mr. Moore aptly put, that it's going to impact 10, 15 years down the road, and you have to seal some of the loopholes that could be in there, should be well looked at before it's legislated, that a new makeup of the board couldn't come in and just rewrite everything and change all the rules simply by being a member of the board and taking a vote. There should be something a little more protective in there that protects not only the townships that you've impacted at this point, but the people that would be impacted farther down the road, particularly on all the communities that grew. And I agree with Mr. Twining's assessment that we do have 3 townships on the southern borders that up until a couple years ago, or the last census, outpopulated a lot of the villages and so forth. But anyway, we as a township still are in the process of working with our legal counsel on the matter, and our biggest concern was the administration and the fee structures that could be established. And if any other townships are interested in sitting down with our people, we'll be glad to work with them. But thanks again for holding the public hearings on these forums.
Just a question, Mr. Bechtel, who is your legal counsel?
You should be aware, but Al Schrader, of course, represents us on matters that Jerry can't because of certain conflicts, and there have been times that Jerry and Al have co-counseled on issues.
Well, that was my question. Is Mr. Schrader working on this for the township or using the services of the county prosecutor's office?
He's working with us, helping us read through and sift through some of the legalese that's been presented at this hearing and the last hearing that we're able to, and so far everything's pretty close to being on the same page except a little bit of some of the verbiage that we would request later on that could be put into it, or work with Jerry to get that into the options.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much for your time.
I have one more question. I don't know who can answer this, but when we're talking about a building inspector, are we talking about electrical and plumbing also? Is this one person, or would you need an individual for all three different things, building, electrical, and plumbing?
Yeah, when you're talking about the inspector, they can be certified in several areas, but that's exactly what you're talking about. You're typically talking about one inspector that will go out and do the electrical inspector, another inspector that will go out and do the footers and block walls, another one that will look at, the ventilation and heating systems. So you're talking about different trades that are applied, and typically an inspector will be certified in one, sometimes 2 or 3 areas that are related, and they'll cover that. We've also talked to several of the zoning inspectors, and it would be our desire that if a township zoning inspector is willing to go through classes, that we would help put them in contact with the appropriate class, especially with footers and foundations. I mean, that would be a natural. They have to go out typically for their zoning permit and make sure that there's a setback and side yards and everything as the hole is dug for that. That would be a natural to have that same zoning inspector put on his other hat while he's there and do the footer inspection. And we think that would help strengthen the township's ability to attract people to become zoning inspectors as well as building inspectors.
So actually, we would need possible 2 or 3 inspectors.
Yeah, but we're not, that's why we're talking, at least starting it out, with contract people rather than staff, because, if you wanted to get carried away and create a department, nobody's suggesting this, you could have the building official, the director, the top dog, and then you could have probably as many as 12 or 15 inspectors sitting around waiting for a house to be inspected. If you go by a contract, well,
you could have a director and he could hire 12 or 13 subs out there and monitor them. So
But I'm saying the both ways are there. We're not proposing to have the staff staffed with civil service and protected employees. We're talking, as we start this up, contracted employees so that you have better control over. They're paid to go out and inspect the electrical inspection at property 2778 Griggs Road. They're not hired to be there for an 8-hour day.
Right. Well, and just I want to put a parallel here. This is how
the townships started with their commercial building code in the
Right.
townships. They contracted out with someone, so we have a track record for that. And if it grows, then you can address that at
And
the
we're
point in time.
paralleling
But you have to start, if you're going to do this, you start someplace, and they are a perfect example of how it was started with the commercial.
And Carlisle has started this a couple of years ago, and from our discussions, they've got a lot of information that's going to be beneficial should this policy be considered and approved by the Board of Commissioners. But, yeah.
On the time frame here, you're going to have, we're going to just say that you're having a meeting on October 30th. Do you believe that we'll be able to vote before, so that this is implemented on January 2nd of 2003, as your memo states?
In the memo, we said the optimistic date would be to have it become effective January 2nd, the day after the holiday. In order to do that, there's at least a 30-day wait period. You would have to take action on November, I think it was the 17th, whatever that middle Thursday is, the Thursday before Thanksgiving, in order to have it take effective on January 2nd. If the discussion is such that there are still things up in the air when the October 30th meeting is held, we may come back and suggest to the commissioners, you not take that action at that point, but...
Yeah, but could we take action on the codes and then still discuss the administration of it?
Yep.
Oh, then...
That's what we're hoping.
Okay.
You could put it in and nobody could adopt, and you're still not.
Right, okay.
If the townships say, we would like the protection to make sure you're not backdooring us, and that was the term one of them used, and allowing the district to define the 3 or 4 townships, then we probably ought to have that in the legislation that you're passing. And that's one of the things we won't know, frankly, until we get everybody together and talk on the 30th.
Okay, well, do you think you're wasting your time doing a 5 and 10 year cost analysis?
If the Board of Commissioners ask me to do that, it's not a waste of my time.
No. I guess what I'm saying at is maybe I'm jumping the gun. I mean, we don't, maybe I'm jumping the gun,
That's why we didn't supply it to you earlier,
Okay.
but if you want it, we...
Sorry, I just have a tendency just to go a little too fast, so. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Anyone else?
We certainly appreciate you considering this. I know it's a huge task, so...
Yes, and you've done most of the work. Thank you very much. And Rebecca, your department.
I'm Dane Linebacker, Brown Hill Township trustee, and I guess I kind of fall into the sit defense position as well, or our township does. We, at first, are disappointed that our society has gotten to the point where we feel we need to regulate something to protect our citizens, but at the same time, we're happy that something's being done to do so. One of our major concerns that's come up at our meetings and discussion over this issue is whatever is put in place doesn't become too complex for the residents wanting to move to our area. We don't want to make it so complex that they end up doing one thing, having to go see someone else, and then having someone else come see them to make the process to get their homes built. We're, as I said, happy that there's some discussions over flexibility of this situation. And as Mr. Walker said, at the same time, there is already a plan in place where the townships use commercial inspection processes that seem to work very well. And as a matter of fact, in those cases, there's very little that the township itself has to do in the process, which everybody likes to have things done easily. So as I analyze what's been said and what is being said, I think we're on the right track by making the whole process flexible enough, but still providing the protection for the residents wishing to come to Lorain County to live. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Tim Mahalsick, Sheffield Township trustee. I just like to clear the air on one thing, and I'm a little less nervous now getting up for the second time. 3 times I've heard already that, contractors are excited to come into the townships and stuff because they feel they can save $6,000 or $8,000, which a few people have said, whatever it is. If it's $5,000, who cares? I kind of really disagree on that for the main fact of it is, I hate to hear that because this is what kind of started off the whole thing and the ball rolling at our meetings when we go to the different townships, once a month. First of all, if you try to buy a lot in the city, in my ways of looking at it through my life of 54 years, a city lot was quite expensive. A lot of people wanted more property and found it more appropriate to buy a township lot because they got an acre lot when they just got a 50-foot lot in the city for the same kind of money. Then contractors I don't see where they can say they save $6,000 or what on a house. There's so many ways to save money on the building of a house without hurting the structural part of it, as the footers and stuff like that. I mean, you could save on a big house, you can save thousands just on going from one window company to another, just because it's a big brand name, but the other window you're getting is a pretty doggone good window. There's carpeting. You can save oodles on carpeting, which isn't a structural thing. But I'm not trying to say that codes shouldn't be made. Like I said, I'm not right at this time for or against, but I think the board should hear this, that I get tired of hearing this, how much people can save by building in a township. I don't find this to be true at all. I figure a lot of it is the people being a little bit naive and picking the cheapest contractor they can pick and not looking at what they're getting. So a big part of it is their own problem, because everybody I've ever seen that wants to build a new house, they go get 5 or 6 contractors and they look at it and say, oh, look, honey, look, buddy, this guy is going to do this much cheaper. Well, are they looking at what they're getting less for this money? This is all I'm saying. Maybe down the line, or maybe it's time for some laws for us to have these things, but I want the people to be heard that it's not a savings to build in the township. More people come to townships for bigger lots for their houses, and the lots seem to have been cheaper in the townships and the villages than in the city, and it's eye-catching to the people that are building, but I see no big savings for a contractor unless you let it happen yourself. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh. That'll be the last thing. You want to speak, Dave?
Gene Spansky, and
no, so now.
I really, everybody's talking about the builders. Actually, this is a big safety factor and a feature for people, private individuals that build in their own home. Now, back about 30 years ago, I used to be the zoning inspector. A guy built a house, came in, asked for a permit. We gave him a permit. I don't know what possessed me. In a couple weeks, I stopped. Well, I thought he knew what he was doing. He's building a 2-story house, but his studding didn't match with his floor joists. These are the things that happen. Now, usually a builder, you can get the cheapest price, but you can end up with a Peerless faucet versus a Moen faucet, Anderson windows instead of Pella windows. There's where your cost differences in homes and in builders. So if you're going to have a house built, find out what you're getting for your dollar, I don't think there's any big cost. Lumber and everything's about the same to all the builders. There's no big savings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. David, you want to have something to say? I know. We're done. I believe.
Should we conclude the hearing?
Do we have to conclude the hearing?
No, I think we should continue it. Well, should we do something?
I believe we're having a hearing on October 30th, and so do we have to make a motion for that?
I suppose we should make a motion to conclude the hearing for today, to public comment today. I would add one more thing, that by keeping, what I mentioned was that we should probably have a motion to conclude the public comment for today. I would add one other thing, is by keeping it open-ended, where you don't put pressure on the townships to make a immediate decision as to whether or not they are in. As you've heard, a lot of townships are on the fence as to whether they can wait and see how it works out a little bit. We've also added an opt-out provision to it, so that if they enter in and then after a period of time they just don't feel comfortable with it and want to opt out, we have a provision to opt out of the district. So we're respecting the autonomy of the townships in every manner that we can.
Do you think we should just continue this meeting? Close. I don't even know if we should close the public participation, because what if we want to hear some more later on?
Well, you can. The only issue at this point would be a requirement for, I mean, you're under no legal obligation at this point to have any other public hearing. So
So you're saying legally, maybe we could close it but still hear it?
you can close it and then have more comment if you want. You can always have more comment. It would just be a question of what you want to do as far as giving public newspaper notice and that sort of thing.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that we conclude this public hearing. Is that satisfactory, Jerry?
Okay.
If somebody seconds it.
I'll second.
Well, why don't we just leave it with, we're concluding the public comment today.
Is that what the motion was?
We've already said there's going to be a public hearing on October 30th, although it's not officially conducted by the commissioners. But you're retaining the right to reopen it and have further hearings if you feel necessary.
Okay.
Okay. My motion is that we will conclude the public comment today, then.
Okay, I'll second.
Okay, before we conclude this meeting today, I have one other question. I've got some information here from Miami County, and what they're doing is they're asking for a building and electrical inspector and a full-time, $19 an hour with one certification, $21 an hour with two certifications. Can we estimate a cost based on these figures on, like, it's going to take, how long does it take to build a house? 3 months? 90 days?
3 months.
Commissioner Rebecca Jones, Lorain County Community Development Department. The way we put our budget together when we looked at this was that we were going to be contracting out inspectors. And we estimated that it would be a cost of $45 per inspection, and there would probably be 6 to 8 inspections per home. And that was the way we figured it out. I think what Miami County, they're actually looking to hire staff, so that's what they would be paying the staff person. And I think, as Ron indicated, we could do it both ways. But what we've got in our budget, we're really looking at paying the inspector per inspection that he or she does.
Probably be less money, an hour to get there, an hour to get back.
Right. That's our sense, is that you would pay them per inspection. And so you would actually, that cost would be passed on directly to the homeowner or through the builder. They would actually be paying for those inspections.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? Mrs. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Moore?
Aye.
Ms. Vacy?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank the township officials again who have come. It's a very important issue for your townships, and we appreciate your input. And those of you who are not townships, we also appreciate your coming.
Yep. Yep, thank you all for coming. Dave, if you want to say something.
We're having a little bit more public comment, Nancy.
Yeah. No, you're okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
David Ashenhurst of Oberlin. I appreciate the commissioners extending the public comment from the agenda before so that I could get here and do this. And it's actually been very instructive for me to listen to the last public hearing, because actually what I have to say doesn't so much, I mean, it has nothing to do with the building code, but it does have to do with public hearings and jurisdictions and who's doing what with all that. So I appreciate it. I'd also like to ask the commissioner's indulgence to give me a little more than 3 minutes, because I could do this in 3 minutes, but I'm afraid I'd have to talk too fast to be clearly understood if I tried to get it all in 3 minutes. There are 2 items I'd like to address. And the first is a matter that came up on the commissioner's agenda in the form of the notice of correspondence on September 5th, the Commissioner's agenda reflects a citizens advisory from the Ohio EPA on an Ohio EPA scheduled public hearing for Lorain County 2 landfill on September 17th, 2002. This hearing is relative to a draft permit to install issued to BFI. If issued as a final action, the permit would allow BFI to expand its Lorain County 2 landfill located at 43502 Oberlin-Elyria Road in Oberlin, Ohio. The hearing will be held at 7 p.m. at the Oberlin High School, 281 North Pleasant. These materials are available for public viewing at the Oberlin Public Library, 65 South Main Street, Oberlin, until Thursday, September 26, 2002, this self-same day. If you'd like to see these materials and don't want to run down to the Oberlin Public Library, I have a copy of everything that has been in place at the Oberlin Public Library. I attended that meeting as I had attended the meeting held January 30th, which was billed as an information session and not a public hearing, regarding this same BFI landfill 2 expansion permit. Again, I learned some incredible things. One, that an EPA public hearing didn't mean that the EPA was going to say anything at all, but simply was having a hearing to take public comment, and they thought maybe we knew that. We didn't know that. We actually thought the EPA was going to say something to us, and then there would be public comment. But they really opened the hearing and said, well, nobody has written down their name as wishing to speak. Does anybody wish to speak? And I had actually gone through enough of the material to know what it would mean if nobody spoke, so I did get up and speak. And I spoke mostly about some issues that had come up at the January 30th meeting that we expected the EPA would say something about how they had resolved them. In the process of going through this, I realized that there is simply something happening in terms of public information and public notice and public participation in the discussion of what's going on, where it's unclear whose jurisdiction something is in and whether it's going to get the kind of public discussion that it might get if this were all a little simpler. But in the citizens advisory, or in the public notice that the EPA put out, there is a line that says, this, if approved, this expansion would add 16.3 million cubic yards of capacity and 5 years of life at the facility's authorized maximum daily waste receipt, that's called an AMDWR, of 6,500 tons. So what that says is, in the public notice it says, this facility will have 5 years of life added to it if they get 6,500 tons of waste every day that they're permitted to operate. Well, when you look at the citizens advisory, oh, come on. When you look at the citizens...
What I'm saying is, you know, we had 45 minutes at the end. I don't want to be rude, but if you're not going to be here on time and spend another 20 minutes of our time talking about something, then I might have to leave because I have another appointment. But we had 45 minutes that we had nothing going on. You could have spoke for 45 minutes. Okay? So I don't want to be rude to the two of you.
I can come some other day.
I appreciate it when the public comment period is. Okay?
I do appreciate it.
I know. If you...
I apologize.
No, you had your 3 minutes. I'm just saying... I didn't want to be rude,
okay.
But
well, I'll
conclude.
I'll just give you the summary.
Okay.
It says 16.3 million cubic yards and 5 years added to the facility's life. If you actually read what they're saying at their anticipated actual gate receipt, They're extending the life of the facility by 13.8 years, and it's already got 17.3 additional years permitted. So what they're saying is, we have a facility where we've got 32 million tons of capacity already permitted. We've only used 16 million tons of it so far, but we'd like you to add 17 million tons upon that. So we're saying that this facility, you know, after they're saying 5 years of life added to it, we're actually adding 31 years of life to it as it stands now. The EPA also said that all this permit does is talk about whether the drainage is okay and whether the topping is okay. Right. It does not address property values, zoning, the truck traffic, the nuisance, or the height of the facility, which would be 140 feet if they fill this capacity. All this is happening without really telling anybody.
Right, no, the article I saw in the paper, it's like this big. They didn't, I mean, I understand.
Okay, I'm just saying that in terms of what they're saying, the health department of Lorain County gets these notices, but this information is buried in it. There is no particular jurisdiction over this thing. I'd suggest perhaps the Community Alliance is something that would maybe take a look at something like this, because there are multiple jurisdictions that have interest in what happens there, separate from the scientific EPA assessment that if they build this